In the heart of Africa lies a nation that is both young and ancient, a land filled with stories of courage, pain, and unbreakable hope. This is South Sudan, the youngest country in the world. Born on July 9, 2011, but behind its independence lies one of the longest and bloodiest struggles for freedom the African continent has ever seen. For decades, Sudan was a single country, the largest in Africa, stretching from the Sahara Desert in the north to the tropical plains in the south. Yet beneath that shared border existed deep divisions. The north was mostly Arab and Muslim, while the south was home to African tribes, Christians, and followers of traditional beliefs. These cultural, religious, and ethnic differences were not just lines on a map. They became cracks that would eventually tear the nation apart. When Sudan gained independence from British and Egyptian rule in 1956, many hoped it would mark the beginning of peace and unity. But those hopes were short-lived. The new government, dominated by northern elites, began to impose its control on the south, ignoring its culture, languages, and way of life. The people of the south felt marginalized, their voices silenced. Soon, resentment turned into resistance. In 1955, even before Sudan officially became independent, the First Sudanese Civil War began. For 17 long years, the South fought against the central government in Khartoum, demanding autonomy and equality. Villages were burned, families displaced, and thousands lost their lives. The war finally ended in 1972 with the Addis Ababa Agreement, which granted the South limited self-rule. For a while, peace returned, but it was fragile, built on promises that were soon broken. By the early 1980s, tensions began to rise again. The northern government, led by President Jafar Naimari, decided to impose Islamic law across the entire country, including the non-Muslim South. This decision was seen as an attack on Southern identity. In 1983, the South rebelled once more, marking the beginning of the Second Sudanese Civil War, one of the longest and deadliest conflicts in modern African history. The Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA, led by Dr. John Garang, became the voice of Southern resistance. Garang's vision was not just separation, but a new Sudan, a nation of equality for all its people. But as the war dragged on, dreams gave way to survival. Entire generations grew up knowing only violence. Millions were killed, and millions more fled to refugee camps in neighboring countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda. Famine and disease added to the suffering, turning southern Sudan into a land of endless despair. Despite the pain, the people of the South never gave up. Their spirit of resilience became stronger with every loss. In 2005, after more than 2 decades of conflict, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, CPA, was finally signed between the Sudanese government and the SPLA. The agreement granted the South autonomy for 6 years and promised a referendum to decide its future, unity or independence. But peace came at a cost. Just months after the signing, John Garang, the man who had become a symbol of hope, died in a helicopter crash. His death sent shockwaves across the nation, and many feared the fragile peace would collapse. Yet his dream lived on. In January 2011, the long-awaited referendum was held. Millions of South Sudanese lined up for hours, some walking for miles under the hot sun, just to cast their vote. When the results were announced, it was almost unanimous. 98.8% voted for independence. On July 9, 2011, South Sudan officially became the world's newest country. In the streets of Juba, people danced, cried, and celebrated as the flag of South Sudan was raised for the first time. Hope filled the air. The new nation had a name, a flag, and a dream. Its capital was Juba. Its official language was English, though local languages like Dinka, Nuer, and Bari echoed across the land. The national currency was the South Sudanese pound. The country was rich in natural resources, especially oil, a treasure many believed would build a prosperous future. But freedom did not bring peace. The challenges facing South Sudan were enormous. Years of war had left the country with almost no infrastructure, few roads, hospitals, or schools. Most people lived in rural villages, relying on farming and cattle herding to survive. The government struggled to manage the economy, and tensions among ethnic groups remained unresolved. Then, in December 2013, just 2 years after independence, South Sudan was thrown back into chaos. A political power struggle between President Salva Kiir, a Dinka, and his vice president Riek Machar, a Nuer, turned into another brutal civil war. Old ethnic divisions reignited, and once again the country was consumed by violence. Cities were destroyed, millions fled their homes, and famine returned to haunt the land. The war lasted for years, devastating the young nation's dreams. International organizations tried to bring peace, but trust between communities had been shattered. Still, amid the suffering, ordinary South Sudanese continued to show remarkable courage. Teachers taught under trees, doctors worked without supplies, and mothers raised children in refugee camps, praying that their sons and daughters might one day see peace. In 2018, a fragile peace agreement was signed once again between Kiir and Machar. Fighting slowed, and people dared to hope, yet the scars of war run deep. Today, more than half of South Sudan's population still depends on humanitarian aid. Floods, droughts, and food shortages continue to make life difficult. The country's roads remain poor, and access to clean water, education, and healthcare is limited. But even so, the spirit of the people endures. Walk through the streets of Juba today, and you'll see both struggle and determination. Markets are filled with traders selling vegetables, children playing soccer in dusty fields, and churches filled with songs of faith. There is hardship, yes, but also pride. Because every South Sudanese knows what it means to fight for freedom. They have lived through pain that many nations can only imagine. South Sudan's story is far from over. It is a story written not only in war and loss, but also in courage and hope. The people of this young nation continue to build, farm, teach, and dream, believing that one day, peace will truly come to stay. The international community continues to stand by them, supporting rebuilding efforts, education programs, and peace initiatives. The United Nations and African Union work hand in hand to help the country stabilize. Meanwhile, South Sudanese artists, writers, and youth use their voices to tell the world that their nation is more than conflict. It is a land of resilience, faith, and endless potential. From the dark days of colonial rule to the long nights of war, from the hope of independence to the challenges of nation building, South Sudan's journey is a testament to human endurance. It reminds us that freedom is never easy and peace is never guaranteed. It must be fought for, protected, and nurtured every single day. So when we look at South Sudan on the map, a small country surrounded by giants, we should not just see its borders or its conflicts. We should see its people, strong, proud, and determined to shape their own destiny. They are the beating heart of Africa's youngest nation, and their story is still being written. This is the story of South Sudan, a land born from struggle, scarred by war, but filled with hope for tomorrow. The story of a people who sacrificed everything for freedom, and who still believe that peace, no matter how delayed, will one day prevail.